All right, jumping right in. We're doing a deep dive today on Rich Dad's Guide to Investing by Robert Kiyosaki. This is for you listeners who wanted the core ideas of this book. So think of this like your fast track to financial wisdom.
Yeah, we're going to be extracting some really potent insights from Kiyosaki's work without you having to read through all those pages.
And leading us through this financial maze, we have our expert in all things money and mindset. Now, before we break down like specific strategies, let's get to the heart of it. What really separates the rich from everybody else, according to Kiyosaki? Is it just about bringing in tons of cash?
You know, it's funny you should say that because Kiyosaki argues it's not about how much you earn, but what you know. Financial education, that's the big difference.
So it's kind of like having a garage full of, top-of-line tools, but absolutely no idea how to use any of them.
That's a perfect analogy.
You can have all the potential, but without the knowledge of how to use those tools to actually build something, you're kind of just stuck.
Exactly. Financial education is all about learning how to use those tools, understanding how money works, how businesses operate, and how to make investments that build wealth. It's about getting that system to work for you instead of being stuck working for the system.
And that's where Kiyosaki's Cashflow Quadrant comes in, right? Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. The cash flow quadrant is a model that categorizes how people make money. It breaks down into 4 quadrants.
All right, I'm ready. Hit me with these quadrants.
First up, you've got the E quadrant, which stands for employee.
Okay.
These are people who trade their time for money working for somebody else, the typical 9 to 5.
Right. Makes sense. What's next?
Then you have the S quadrant for self-employed or small business owner. Think doctors, lawyers, consultants, people who own their jobs but are still very tied to their time for income.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It seems like a lot of people kind of strive for that self-employed status, but Kiyosaki's saying it's not necessarily the ideal path to building wealth.
Yeah, and that's a key insight. According to Kiyosaki, even being self-employed can trap you in a cycle of trading your time for money.
All right, so what are the other two quadrants then? Where's the real wealth-building magic happen?
Well, that's where we get into the B and the I quadrants. The B stands for business owner. Think of someone who builds a company with systems that generate income without them needing to be involved in every single detail.
Ah, so this is where that passive income idea starts to come in.
Exactly. These are the people who build a system that works even while they're sleeping. And finally, you've got the I quadrant, which stands for investor. Investors use their money to make more money by putting it into assets that generate income, whether that's real estate, businesses, or other investment vehicles.
So if I'm understanding this right, the big takeaway is the goal is to move from the E and the S quadrants where your income is tied to you actively working to the B and I quadrants where your income is kind of working for you even when you're not.
That's the essence of it. Kiyosaki's emphasizing shifting from an earning mindset to an investing mindset, which can be a huge mental shift for a lot of people. It's almost like you're retraining your brain to think about money and wealth in a completely different way.
Yeah, absolutely. It really challenges how a lot of us have been taught to think about money. Now let's talk about how Kiyosaki defines assets and liabilities.
Mhm.
He really kind of flips the script on conventional thinking here, right? It's not just about owning stuff.
You're absolutely right. He challenges those traditional definitions. A true asset, he says, is anything that puts money in your pocket.
Okay.
And on the flip side, anything that's taking money out of your pocket is a liability, even if it's something that's typically seen as valuable.
Wow, I'm already seeing how this could be like a total game changer in how we look at our finances. So, for example, like most people see their house as their biggest asset.
Mhm.
What's Kiyosaki's take on that?
Well, he argues that for a lot of people, their house is actually a liability.
Seriously. Explain that one, because I think a lot of people, myself included, would be surprised to hear that.
Well, just think about it. If you have a mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and all that stuff, all those expenses, and your house isn't actually generating any income, is it truly an asset? Or is it constantly pulling money out of your pocket?
Yeah, I see what
Mhm.
you mean. It's kind of like buying a fancy car that depreciates the second you drive it off the lot, and it's always needing expensive maintenance and definitely not putting any money back in your pocket.
That's a perfect analogy. It's a liability disguised as an asset. Kiyosaki wants you to look at everything through the lens of cash flow. Is this putting money in my pocket or taking it out?
So how does that change how we should be thinking about our spending and our investments?
It pushes you to ask that key question with everything you buy, every financial decision. Are you buying things that look good on the surface but are actually draining your finances? Or are you investing in things that are generating income and building long-term wealth?
Wow, this is fascinating. So let's get into some of the specific strategies that Kiyosaki recommends in the book. What are some of the key ways to start building that positive cash flow?
He covers quite a few, but some of his core recommendations are real estate, owning your own business, and investing in the stock market.
Yeah, real estate seems to be kind of a favorite of his, right?
Yes, he's a big proponent of real estate, particularly rental properties. They generate passive income through rent payments, and they can appreciate in value over time.
So you're essentially building a stream of income that's not tied to your time or your job.
Exactly. And he also talks about the tax advantages that can come with real estate investing.
Okay, so we have real estate. What about like owning a business? That feels a little more, I don't know, daunting to me, honestly.
Yeah, I hear you. But Kiyosaki really believes that owning a business is one of the most powerful ways to create real wealth. A business can generate income through products or services. And unlike a job, it has the potential to be scaled up significantly.
But isn't starting a business like incredibly risky? I think that's what holds a lot of people back from even trying.
It definitely can be risky, but Kiyosaki's point is that even if your first business doesn't succeed, the things you learn in the process are super valuable. It's all part of your financial education, like an investment in your future success.
So it's not about being afraid of failing. It's about looking at failure as like a stepping stone to eventual success.
Exactly. Each experience, win or lose, adds to your knowledge base and helps you refine your strategies.
And he also talks about stocks in the book, right?
Yeah, Kiyosaki sees stocks and bonds as more traditional investment vehicles, but he stresses that a lot of people don't really understand how to invest in them effectively.
It's not about just kind of throwing darts at a board and hoping for the best.
Definitely not. Kiyosaki really emphasizes the need to educate yourself, understand market dynamics, and choose your investments wisely. It's about being an informed, strategic investor, not a gambler.
One thing that really stood out to me was his focus on cash flow over capital gains. Can you explain that for our listeners?
Yeah, that's a really crucial point. A lot of investors get so caught up in an asset going way up in value. But Kiyosaki emphasizes that it's the consistent income, the cash flow generated by an asset, that really matters.
So it's not just about something increasing in value. It's about it putting money in your pocket on a regular basis.
That's it, the heart of it, the key to financial freedom. Think about it like owning a vending machine.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
That vending machine, it's generating income day and night, even when you're asleep. You don't have to be there actively working for it to make money.
Yeah, now I'm really starting to see the power of this concept. So real estate, owning a business, stocks, these are all ways to build that consistent cash flow that can lead to financial freedom.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki really goes into how to leverage those different investment avenues to build wealth strategically.
He also gets into some more, I guess, complicated areas like using taxes and debt to your advantage. We might not have time to unpack all of that today, but can you just touch on why he sees those as important tools?
Sure. Kiyosaki stresses understanding how these systems work and how you can use them legally and ethically to, speed up your wealth building journey.
So it's not about like finding shady loopholes or trying to cheat the system. It's about financial literacy, educating yourself so you can use the system in a smart way.
Precisely. His whole philosophy is centered around empowering people to take control of their finances and create a life of abundance. But that takes knowledge, effort, and a willingness to think differently.
It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. He's very clear about that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He emphasizes that building real wealth takes time, dedication, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. Setbacks are part of the process. They offer incredible learning opportunities.
So it's just as much about cultivating the right mindset as it is about the specific strategies.
That's a great way to put it. You have to believe in yourself, your ability to achieve financial freedom, and you got to be in it for the long haul.
This has been such a great overview of Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, but I think we've definitely touched on some key takeaways.
We've laid a solid foundation, but there's always more to explore. It's up to our listeners to take these ideas and dig deeper and find those strategies that really work for them.
And I love what you said earlier about not getting overwhelmed.
Hmm.
You don't have to become like a real estate mogul or a stock market whiz overnight. Start with one thing.
Right. Maybe you start learning about rental properties, or you explore a small business idea, or you dive into some books on investing. Pick one area that interests you and just go from there.
It's like picking up a new hobby. right? You don't have to be an expert right away. You just have to start exploring and experimenting.
That's a perfect analogy. And there's so much info out there, books, podcasts, online courses, mentors. You don't have to do this alone.
And Kiyosaki would definitely say, don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Oh, totally. Mistakes are going to happen, especially when you're pushing your boundaries. The important thing is to learn from them and keep moving forward.
Failure is just feedback, right? A chance to adjust and try again.
Exactly. The more you learn, the more confident you'll be in making those smart financial decisions.
I'm curious to hear what you think about Kiyosaki's emphasis on finding mentors. Why is that such a key part of his philosophy?
Well, he thinks surrounding yourself with people who are already successful in areas that you're interested in can be so valuable. Mentors can provide guidance, support, and even, connect you with opportunities.
So it's not just about learning from like books or courses, it's about finding real-world examples and tapping into that experience.
That's right. A good mentor can save you years of trial and error. They can help you avoid some of the common pitfalls and speed up your progress because they've already been down that road.
And mentorship isn't just for beginners, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even people who are already experienced investors can benefit from connecting with others who have different expertise or perspectives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's always something new to learn, no matter how experienced you are. And being part of a network of like-minded people can keep you motivated and accountable.
So find your tribe, connect with mentors, never stop learning.
That's the Kiyosaki recipe for success.
Now, we know Kiyosaki's work has gotten both praise and criticism over the years. Some people think his ideas are revolutionary, while others find them controversial. What do you think about those mixed reactions to his work?
I think it's important to remember that Kiyosaki's approach isn't going to resonate with everybody. He's challenging a lot of conventional wisdom about finances, and that can make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's definitely shaking things up and encouraging people to really question assumptions they might not even realize they're making.
That's true. And his writing style is very direct, which some people might find a bit off-putting.
Yeah, he's not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
But I think it's important to look beyond the style and focus on the substance of his message. He's really advocating for financial literacy. He wants people to be in control of their destiny and to build a life of abundance. And those are messages that really connect with a lot of people.
It's about empowerment, isn't it? It's about realizing you have more control over your financial future than you might initially think.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes his work so compelling, even if you don't agree with every single strategy he recommends.
He inspires people to think differently, to ask questions, and ultimately to take action.
That's what matters most.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more thing that stood out to me in Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. Kiyosaki talks a lot about the influence of fear and greed when we're making financial decisions.
Yeah, those two powerful emotions that can really drive our financial choices,
Right.
and a lot of times not in a good way.
He says fear can kind of paralyze us, prevent us from taking risks, and ultimately keep us stuck in those E and S quadrants.
Mhm.
And then, on the other hand, greed can lead us to make these impulsive decisions that end up hurting us in the long run.
He's right on the money there. Fear and greed can really cloud our judgment and mess up our plans.
So how can we overcome those emotional obstacles?
Kiyosaki believes knowledge is like the antidote to fear. The more you understand about money, investing, and the whole financial system, the less power fear has over you.
So it's almost like education unlocks courage.
That's a great way to put it. And when it comes to combating greed, Kiyosaki recommends developing a clear, long-term vision for your financial future.
So it's about thinking long term, not just chasing those quick wins.
That's the idea. Delaying gratification, making choices that will benefit you down the road, not just in the moment.
It's about playing the long game, not getting caught up in those day-to-day ups and downs of the market.
You got it. It requires discipline, patience, and a strong belief that you can achieve your goals.
This has been such a fascinating look at the core ideas of Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. We've covered a lot from financial education and mindset shifts to specific investment strategies and the dangers of letting our emotions like fear and greed drive our financial decisions. I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways is that we all have the potential to achieve financial freedom.
I couldn't agree more. It's not about luck. It's not about privilege. It's about gaining that knowledge, taking action, and being willing to challenge how we think about money.
It's about taking responsibility for our own futures and becoming, the architects of our own wealth.
That's a powerful way to put it. We can create the life we want, but it starts with taking control of our finances and building a solid foundation for the future.
Well said. Now, as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question, something to think about. We've talked about Kiyosaki's emphasis on moving from the E and S quadrants over to the B and I quadrants. But what if there's a fifth quadrant, one that Kiyosaki doesn't mention?
Ooh, I like where you're going with this, a fifth quadrant.
What if this fifth quadrant represents something beyond just financial freedom? Like, what if it's a state of, like, complete abundance, where financial security is just one piece of the puzzle?
I like it. A state of abundance that's not just about wealth, but includes things like health, relationships, having a purpose, and feeling fulfilled.
Exactly. So while Kiyosaki's framework gives us a plan for financial freedom, it's important to remember that money's just one tool for building a truly abundant life.
That's such a good point. Financial freedom is a great goal, but it's not the only goal. It's about using your resources, your money, and everything else to create a life that's meaningful and fulfilling in every aspect.
That's a great place to leave it. Now, take some time to think about that fifth quadrant and how it might fit into your vision of an abundant life. We'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, where we'll look more closely at some of those more controversial ideas from Kiyosaki and talk about how to apply his principles to your own life. Welcome back. Ready for part 2 of our deep dive into Rich Dad's Guide to Investing? Yeah, definitely. Last time we talked about some of those core concepts from Kiyosaki, like financial education, that cash flow quadrant, and his ideas about assets and liabilities. And we even touched on that idea of a fifth quadrant of abundance.
That's right. We talked about financial education, mindset, using debt the right way, understanding taxes, and so much more.
Now, in this part, I kind of want to shift gears a bit and dig into some of Kiyosaki's ideas. They're a little more, controversial. He really likes to challenge conventional thinking, and some of his advice has definitely caused some debate.
Oh, yeah. He's not afraid to shake things up a little. One area where he really goes against the grain is his view on debt.
Yeah. He actually encourages people to use debt to build wealth. That seems kind of crazy, right? Everything we've always heard is to avoid debt at all costs.
It definitely goes against everything we've been told. But Kiyosaki argues that, not all debt is bad. He talks about good debt and bad debt.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me more about this good debt versus bad debt thing.
He says bad debt takes money out of your pocket, like credit card debt, car loans, any loans on things that don't make you money.
So the kind of debt that keeps you stuck in that paycheck to paycheck cycle.
That's it. But then there's good debt, which is debt that actually puts money in your pocket, debt you use to buy things that generate income.
So like if you get a mortgage to buy a rental property that makes you money every month.
Exactly. Kiyosaki argues that by using this good debt strategically, you can actually speed up the process of building wealth. He sees it as a tool to get your hands on income-producing assets.
Interesting. So instead of being scared of all debt, we should be learning how to use it strategically.
That's his philosophy.
Yeah.
But of course, you got to be careful and have a solid plan. It's not about racking up debt without thinking.
Right. It sounds like you need to know what you're doing and do your research.
Yeah,
It's being smart about debt, not careless.
absolutely.
Another area where Kiyosaki has kind of stirred things up is his approach to taxes. Some people say he's promoting tax avoidance, but he says he's just teaching people about taxes.
Right. His argument is that most people don't really get the tax code, so they end up paying more than they have to.
So he's not saying break the law. He's saying understand the law and use it to your benefit.
That's his point. He thinks the wealthy use the tax code to their advantage, and everyone should learn to do the same. He encourages people to get professional advice and find legal ways to lower their taxes.
It's important to point out here that we are not tax experts. This is not financial advice. We're just exploring what Kiyosaki says in his book.
Right. This is about understanding his point of view and getting our listeners to do their own research and talk to the pros before they make any financial decisions.
Okay, good point. Let's talk about another one of Kiyosaki's big ideas, the whole importance of financial education. He's really passionate about this. Why do you think that is?
He believes that if you want to build wealth, you've got to start with financial education. Most people are never taught how money works, or how to manage it well, or how to invest it properly. They're stuck with outdated advice or just doing what everyone else does, and that often leads to financial struggles.
He talks about how we learn about history, science, math in school, but we don't learn about money.
Yeah, it's a big gap in our education. He sees financial education as the key to breaking free from that rat race, achieving financial freedom and living that abundant life.
So what does he suggest people do to improve their financial knowledge?
He's all about reading books, going to seminars, listening to podcasts like this one, finding a mentor who's already successful, and just talking about money with people who know what they're doing. Surround yourself with that knowledge and always be learning.
He's all about lifelong learning, isn't he? It's not like you learn it once and you're done. You're constantly learning new things.
Exactly. The financial world is always changing, so you have to keep up.
Something else we talked about earlier that I want to come back to. Those mindset shifts that are often needed to be successful with money. Kiyosaki spends a lot of time talking about how rich people think about money differently than poor or middle-class people.
Yeah, he says the rich have a whole different attitude towards money. They don't see it as something to be afraid of or to hold on to tightly. They see it as a way to make more money and create new opportunities.
It's not just about having more money. It's about changing your whole relationship with it.
Yeah, it's about seeing money as something you can use, not something that causes stress.
And he talks about taking risks and being okay with failure.
Right. He says the rich are willing to get out of their comfort zone and try new things, even if it means taking a risk. They know that you can't always win and that sometimes you fail, but you learn from those failures.
They see it as feedback,
hmm
not a sign that you're a loser.
Exactly. And they're not afraid to ask for help or advice. They don't think they have to have all the answers.
So basically what Kiyosaki is saying is, educate yourself, change your mindset, be willing to take some risks, and don't be afraid to mess up sometimes.
That's a good summary. But it's important to remember, this isn't some magic formula. It takes work, it takes dedication, and it takes challenging what you think you know.
Okay, I'm sure some people are listening thinking, that's all great, but how do I actually do all that? Where do I even begin?
I think that's a really good question. Kiyosaki gives a lot of advice on what to do, specific steps you can take, but the first thing you got to do is look honestly at where you are financially and what your goals are.
So before you start picking investments or anything like that, you need to figure out your starting point and where you want to be.
Right. Once you know that, you can start making a plan that fits your goals and the kind of life you want to live.
And you don't have to do everything all at once. You can start with small steps.
Definitely. You can start by making a budget, paying off high-interest debt, maybe putting a little money aside to invest each month.
Or maybe start by learning more about finances. Read a book or take a class.
Exactly. Just take action. Even a small step is better than nothing.
Now we have to address something. Kiyosaki has been criticized for some of his business dealings and for oversimplifying complicated financial topics.
Yeah, there have been some issues surrounding his work. It's really important that our listeners know about those criticisms and do their own research before making any decisions based only on his advice.
We're not saying do this or do that. We're just looking at what Kiyosaki says and trying to encourage people to think critically.
Exactly. Take what works for you, leave what doesn't, and always look for different perspectives.
And it's important to remember that things have changed a lot since Kiyosaki first wrote this book.
That's a good point. The internet, all those new jobs, new technology, it's all created opportunities and problems that Kiyosaki couldn't have predicted.
So while those core ideas about financial education, mindset, and building wealth are still really valuable, you might need to tweak his strategies for how things are today.
Absolutely. Take those basic ideas and make them work for your own situation.
Now, the last part of our deep dive, I want to come back to that fifth quadrant idea again. Remember how we talked about how real abundance is more than just money? It's about health, relationships, having a purpose, and feeling fulfilled.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk more about that. It's something a lot of people are trying to figure out these days.
Me too. So let's dig into that fifth quadrant and talk about how we can use what Kiyosaki says, along with other ideas, to create a life that's truly abundant in every way. All right, welcome back to our deep dive into Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. We've covered a lot of ground, right? Kiyosaki's core ideas, some of his more controversial ones, and we even came up with this idea of a fifth quadrant of abundance.
Yeah, we've talked about financial education, changing your mindset about money, using debt strategically, figuring out taxes, all kinds of stuff.
Right. Now, in this final part, I want to really explore that fifth quadrant. Like we said before, true abundance isn't just about having a ton of money. It's about having a life that's fulfilling in every sense.
It's about being well-rounded,
Yeah.
having that financial security as a base, but building on that.
Totally. So if we picture this fifth quadrant,
Here,
what do you think are some of the things that make up this idea of holistic abundance?
I think health has to be a big part of it. Like, what good is all the money in the world if you're not healthy enough to enjoy it?
You're right. It's like they say, health is wealth. You got to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally. It's all connected.
And then you have relationships, of course. Having good relationships with family, friends, people you love, that's huge for a happy life.
Yeah, you can be super rich, but if you don't have anyone to share it with, what's the point?
Yeah, so true. And then I think having a sense of purpose is a big part of this fifth quadrant. Knowing why you get up every day, what you're contributing to the world, it gives you a sense of meaning that money just can't buy.
It's about being passionate about something, using your skills to make a difference, feeling like your life matters.
Yeah, and I think creativity and personal growth are important too. Constantly learning, trying new things, expanding your horizons.
It's about staying curious, always learning, not being afraid to try new things.
Right. And I can't forget, joy and fulfillment have got to be part of it too. An abundant life is one that's full of happy moments, feeling grateful, feeling satisfied.
Yeah, it's about enjoying those little things, appreciating the good times, looking at life in a positive way.
I like that. It's about being happy now, not just waiting for happiness to come later.
So we've got health, relationships, purpose, creativity, growth, joy, fulfillment, all essential ingredients for a really abundant life.
And even though financial security can definitely play a role in all of those, it's not a guarantee. We have to be proactive about building these things into our lives, no matter how much money we have.
Okay, so how do you think what Kiyosaki says about financial freedom fits in with this idea of abundance in all these other areas?
Well, I think when you feel in control of your money, like he talks about, it gives you a feeling of power and security that can affect other parts of your life.
It's like having that solid foundation that frees you up to focus on other things.
Exactly. When you're not constantly stressed about money, you have more energy to do things you love, take care of your relationships, do things for your community.
It allows you to focus on what's really important.
And that whole thing about mindset that Kiyosaki talks about, believing in yourself, being willing to take risks and fail, that applies to everything, not just money.
It's about having that growth mindset, always being open to learning and seeing challenges as opportunities.
Totally. And his focus on having a long-term vision and delaying gratification, that can also be helpful when you're trying to build this kind of well-rounded, abundant life.
Yeah, it's about making choices that are good for you in the long run, even if they don't feel good right away.
Thinking about the big picture, not just quick fixes.
So even though Rich Dad's Guide to Investing is really about the financial side of things, there are ideas in it that we can use to make our lives better in all sorts of ways.
It's about taking those core ideas of education, changing your mindset, taking action, and applying them to every part of your life.
So to wrap up this whole deep dive, here are some of the key things we've learned. First, understanding how money works is essential. It's the foundation for everything else.
Second, your mindset makes a huge difference. The way you think about money, risk, and success shapes how things turn out for you financially.
Third, you have to take action. Reading books and listening to podcasts is great, but if you don't actually do something, nothing will change.
And last but not least, remember that true abundance is about more than just your bank account. It's about having a life that's full of good health, strong relationships, a sense of purpose, creativity, growth, joy, and fulfillment.
It's about finding that balance where you're secure financially and also living a life that feels meaningful and lines up with what you value.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So as you go forward, think about how you can use what Kiyosaki says, along with any other strategies you find helpful, to build that truly abundant life. It's a journey worth taking.
That's a great way to end it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. I hope everyone got something valuable out of it.
It's been awesome exploring all these ideas with you and the listeners.
And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep going for that abundant life.